I self-published this book in February of 2024, and in that year I made over 100 grand in profit. And while I had interest from quite a lot of agents and editors and publishing companies to help me get this book to market, I decided to self-publish. And I'm going to tell you why. But for the uninitiated, my name is Jill Bearup, and I should probably explain how we got to here. One morning near the end of June 2022, I woke up very early and thought, I've got a funny idea for a YouTube short. What if there was a writer, a screenwriter maybe, or an author, and she was auditioning fantasy heroines?
Your 2 o'clock is waiting in your office.
And then what if the fantasy heroine who turned up—
Good afternoon. Hello.
wasn't a 16-year-old waif who could inexplicably use a warbow, but instead a woman who was my age, 36 at the time,
Whatever, fine. Maybe old people will read it.
who refused to follow along with any of the tropes. That's so funny, I thought. I would watch a YouTube short about that. So later that day, I drafted a script, put on a couple of different costumes, and made the video.
Hot. I think we're going to do great things together.
Oh, as yet unnamed writer, you had no idea. And neither did I. That video went up on the 29th of June 2022, got a follow-up in August of 2022.
Hello. Oh, you're hurt. Excellent. Tell me all about it.
And by December, there were 50 episodes of the Fantasy Heroine series, and people kept saying to me, but when are you going to write the book? Or, this is just really clever marketing for the book you're writing, isn't it? I had never written a book. I had no particular desire to write a book. The last time I'd written fiction was fanfic, probably 10 years previously. But I thought, you know what? The outline of the plot already exists. I'll give it a go. If this is your first time hearing about the Fantasy Heroine series, I will put the compilation video in a card and you can go have a look and see if it's something you're interested in. I finished the zero draft in January of 2023 at 55,000 words. The finished book, which came out just over a year later, is 81,000 words. In August of 2023, in the middle of line editing, I put the ebook up for pre-order, and in December of 2023, I put the paperback up for pre-order. Now, during that writing process, I made a couple of videos telling my audience that I was writing the book and a few things about it, which meant that I started getting emails from literary agents, from people who worked at publishers, from people who were in charge of acquisition at publishers, about a dozen in all. And I took a couple of meetings with a couple of different people in those early stages, but while they were very kind to me, I have to say that the experience did not make me want to leap into the world of traditional publishing. Put it like that. A couple of the publishers who showed interest came along rather too late in the process, so they would say, we'd like to help you publish your book. And I would say, but it's already ready. What would you be doing? And the interactions in the middle section between it's too late now and it's at the very early stages all went like this. Hi, we heard you're working on a book and we would love to see the manuscript to see if we can help you publish it. Okay, sounds good. Here is whichever draft of the manuscript we're currently on. I really like your book. Thanks. And I really like your cover. Cheers. But I have no idea how we would market this book. It is not really in our genre. Too much contemporary romance to be fantasy.
Caroline Lindley, are you going on a date?
Too much fantasy to be a contemporary romance.
He is threatening me in my own house.
And too much meta interaction between the characters to really fit anywhere. When your nearest comparator is The Princess Bride, which came out, what, 40 years ago now, it doesn't really speak to modern publishing trends, shall we say. No problem. I know some people who'll buy it. And you did. So to the numbers. A lot of books sell a significant proportion of their copies in the first week, and Just Stab Me Now was no exception. In my first week, in ebook and paperback combined, I sold 25,000 copies, roughly, and about half of those were pre-orders. Which means, to this date, roughly 25% of all copies sold were by pre-order. And 25,000 copies in a week, even though all of them weren't actually in the US, put me on a US sales-based bestseller list. I'm hoping that in 2025 we might hit 50,000 total copies sold. It's certainly possible if we manage to get the audiobook out, and we are creeping towards completion. But here are the finalized numbers for 2024, which are different to what I said in a previous short. I'll explain why in a minute. Via Amazon, I sold 10,616 paperbacks. In fact, Ingram Sparks' reporting is so bad that I am having to re-record this part. It says on the officially outputted CSV file I just got that in 2024 I sold 16,219 paperbacks. It does not say how many of those were returned, however. At any rate, you can't return ebooks, so via Ingram Spark in 2024 I sold 2,497 ebooks. I sold 13,221 ebooks on Amazon, 301 ebooks on Google Books, and about 80 ebooks on Bain.com, making the theoretical total 42,933, so I really don't know how many returns there were, but around 1,000. Let's say we sold 42,000 copies in total. But don't worry, I do know exactly how much money I made. £116,814.87, from which we must subtract editing costs, cover costs, miscellaneous costs, and Ingram Spark returns. Those costs totalled £11,972.11. Therefore, my income before taxes for the books sold in 2024 was, drumroll please, £104,842.76, which, since the US dollar is an understood currency everywhere and the Great British Pound not so much, equates to $135,215.71. If you want a video breaking down exactly how much money I made from each platform, I can probably do that, but for the moment I will tell you how much money I made per book depending on where you bought it, because that is also a question I get a lot. From most money to least. For an Amazon paperback, you pay $17.99 and I make $5.93. This does vary a little bit from country to country, but roughly. On Patreon, you get the ebook for $4 and I make $3.60. Also, you get 2 copies of the ebook, the regular one with the kind of standard formatting like in the paperback, and also one which doesn't have any fonts in it at all, so if you need to change your fonts to Open Dyslexia, you can do that more easily. Google Books, you pay $4.99, I get $3.55. Roughly. Amazon Kindle ebooks cost $4.99 usually, and I make $3.44. If they're on offer, obviously I get less than that. Ingram Spark paperbacks cost $17.99, I get $3. Bain ebooks cost $4.99, I get about half of that, so $2.49 let's say. And if you buy an ebook anywhere other than Amazon or Bain or Google Books, it costs $4.99 and I get $2. So what did I do with the money? Well, first, I had to put a significant amount of it aside for taxes. Having done that, I decided what the business really needed was a suit of armour. So I put down a deposit for that, and this week I went for my first measurement session. They're not going to get started on the project until June, July time because they have other orders that they need to fulfill, but super exciting, and I will be making videos about the entire process. Fun fact I found out from my accountants this year, buying a suit of armour as a business expense counts under capital allowances. Learn something new every day. But what about me? Because I get some of that money, right? Yes, this is what I did with it. Or rather, this is a photocopy of what I did with it because it needs to be redacted. Allow me to summarise. You've paid off your mortgage. Dear Jill and Mr. Jill, we're pleased to let you know that your mortgage has been paid off. This means your mortgage account has now been closed. We'll release our charge on your property within the next 10 working days. If you'd told me 3 years ago today, you know those things, YouTube shorts that YouTube just brought in? Well, you're going to make one, and then it's going to turn into a whole series, and then you're going to write a book about it. And then you're going to pay off your mortgage with the money you earned from that book. I would probably have laughed at you, I'm going to be honest. But you know what? Here we are. See this wall? My wall. See this broken door handle? My broken door handle. See this hideous light fixture? My hideous light fixture. Thank you all so much. Thank you especially to my patrons and channel members who, while I was writing this book and therefore not really making any videos, kept supporting me anyway because they believed in what I was doing. Thank you to everyone who has bought the book, got it out of their local library, lent it to their friends, talked about it, reviewed it on Amazon. I appreciate you all. This, as opposed to this, is the kind of draft copy of the hardback. Something that looks quite like this will be the hardcover version that's available on Amazon because they don't do just jackets. The main complaint I got about the paperback was that the font wasn't big enough, so we've made the font significantly bigger, which does mean this is kind of a chunky girl, clocking in at 400 pages, but you know what? You'll be able to read it. Audiobook is in progress. We are now up to chapter 17. While we have a couple of pickups to do when all of the editing is finished, they are very minor. When it's finished, I will know, and then you will know. And at that point, I will be able to give you a publication date for the audiobook. But until then, I appreciate your patience. Nonetheless, thank you for coming on this journey with me. If you've never seen the Fantasy Heroine series, then You might want to watch that because you might like it. And then if you do like it, you might want to get the book. But always better to go for the free thing first, in my opinion. Anyway, thank you for watching and making this possible. And I'll see you all soon. Happy YouTube anniversary to me.